It's almost the end of the day, and I was thinking about this the other day. You know that emoji with the hands up? Everyone uses that, but we don't do that in real life. So let's just get your hands up, stretch, whatever you need to do. I'm bringing this emoji to real life. Thank you for having me. My name is Amanda Clea, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer of a company called Figma. How many people have heard of Figma? Oh, yay, good. Well, you'll hear a little bit more about it today. My talk is really a collection of stories. So hopefully it's a little lighter on the mental side. There's no 2x2 boxes. There's lots of pictures. So my first story starts the summer of 2016. I did something that makes a hard day of work seem easy in retrospect. My husband and I raced a 27-foot sailboat from San Francisco to Hawaii. The race was supposed to take about 14 days, but that summer there were multiple hurricanes in the Pacific. We checked the weather and wind patterns daily and approached the race with a lot of caution. The starting line was off Crissy Field in the bay near the Golden Gate Bridge. And thanks to my husband's racing experience, we had a very competitive start and were first out of the bridge. 30 miles later, as we approached the south side of the Farallon Islands, a large humpback whale surfaced about 50 meters in front of our boat. We were not whale watching that day, so we diverted our path, but a minute later, the whale surfaced literally right next to the boat. So close, I could have jumped on its back. Again, we changed course, diverted any collision. But this Moby Dick experience foreshadowed the journey, which was a tale of seasickness, sleep deprivation, stormy weather, and an unexpected masterclass in old school navigation. A few days into the trip, we lost access to our digital devices to navigate from an equipment failure. So most of the trip, we were navigating with an analog compass. Not fun. But we made it. Our race ended up taking us 11 days instead of the 14 because of the gale force winds that we were front running. We landed at Kaneohe Bay, which is on the island of Oahu, and quickly threw down a Mai Tai. Well, actually, we both lost a lot of weight, and I now can tell you that you can gain it all back with Mai Tais really quickly. We ended up in 14th place out of about 70 boats, which we were impressed by based on all the problems we had. But we are here to talk about work. So why am I telling you my sailing story? To me, it's a good reminder that hard things are the most memorable and good things. And so many people sometimes ask me, are you having fun at work? And I'm like, fun is not my judge of whether it's worthy of my time. So for those days that you have that are challenging, hopefully this helps make it feel a little bit better. My goal today is to share some of my own stories about work and lessons because while I have never managed a success team before, I've managed lots of teams that work with success. So, and I think we have a unique opportunity as go-to-market leaders because we have special context about the customer, and being able to collaborate with our peers about that customer journey is important. Like many of you, my career path was not a traditional one. I started my career in southern Germany working at Hewlett-Packard in IT support. After working there for 6 years, I realized I had no understanding of what the company did or who the customers were. This is back office IT. My 20-something-year-old self was smart enough to recognize that this disconnect was the reason why many of my colleagues were getting laid off and their jobs moved to Malaysia. And frankly, I was bound to be next because we were not part of the core competency of the business. And to stay relevant, interested, and employed, I needed to get closer to the customer. Wanting to diversify my West Coast upbringing, I moved to Connecticut for a Yale MBA, and afterwards I landed in the Bay Area at a security SaaS company called Postini. However, the day before I started, it got acquired by Google. I had actually wanted to work at a small company because HP was big. I thought it would be fun, but that small company dream was dashed. But working at Google did bring me into the customer fold because I got a job in marketing. 2.5 years later, though, those initial desires of wanting a startup experience came back. And I was introduced to the CEO of a company called Zendesk, which you probably know. It was a Danish-founded company. It had 12 employees at the time. They had just moved to San Francisco, and they needed their first marketer. For the first time in my life, I jumped out of bed Monday morning. It was so fun. They had product market fit and about 1,000 customers, all small businesses, but big names like Twitter, small company then, but it was a big brand already. The mission was to democratize great support. And at the time, the available tech wasn't accessible for SMBs. It was expensive and cumbersome, built for big call centers rather than modern online businesses. So we were disrupting how software was bought in the industry as well, and I liked that. We also made it extremely easy to try, use, and buy online without having to talk to anyone. To me, this is your customer journey. And I think about the customer journey by what the customer is actually experiencing. Because if you have your customer journey with your back to your customers, you're not really speaking their language. And we used to talk about that all the time at Zendesk. Do we have our back to the customer? Or we'd really say your ass to the customer. But I had regular calls with customers to understand their challenges, ask them why they chose us, why they hadn't, learn the words they used to describe the value we provided. It was the exact thing that we all have to do in a go-to-market job, which is get to know your customer. In the course of 1.5 years, we went from 1,000 customers to 10,000 without hiring a single sales rep. We overinvested in customer service because we knew we had to get that right if we were going to be evangelizing great support. We believed that customer service was your sales and marketing. They were who was interacting the most with the customers, after all. And I realize now that we trained our support team to be success-like managers, too. There was a ton of customer love. In the early days, I ran a survey asking, how would you feel if you couldn't use Zendesk? The emotional responses were akin to losing a pet. There was so much passion and connection I didn't realize you could have for B2B software. And most importantly, I learned a ton about our customers and how to think in a customer-focused way, both by doing things right and by doing things wrong. The good at Zendesk included things like experimenting with customer onboarding messages to every new person who tried the product. Totally not scalable, but that's what we did in the early days. We also created a persona named Jennifer Hansen, and she signed off automated emails to make them sound more warm and personal. She got a much better response rate than the Zendesk team. The not so good included 1 year we had our 4-year anniversary. I wanted to do a win-back campaign, and so to celebrate the occasion, I made a promo code, 4 years of Zen. Can anyone shout out why you think that might not have been so great?
4 years off, is it 4 years Zen?
No, you're getting too fancy. Well, I didn't know at the time, but some cultures view the number 4 as super unlucky. She knows. Massively unlucky. Apparently, the number 4 sounds like death in Chinese. Korean. There we go. So lesson learned, 4 years of Zen, not effective in APAC. But our biggest hurdle, or most memorable lesson, was when we made our first pricing change. We were working on a significant number of product updates, and we felt justified in a change in price because of the increased value we were adding. We decided that existing customers who paid us annually or upgraded to annual billing would be grandfathered into the old price. Otherwise, you'd be subject to the new price along with new customers. The problem was the majority of our SMB customers loved month-to-month billing. They depended on that and appreciated the flexibility of it. What seemed like a justified change on our end completely transformed our relationship overnight with our most loyal evangelists. For the first time, we had done wrong by our customers, and they were telling us on every public forum available. Media started writing about it because our customers were so public and prolific with their feelings. Our leadership team debated the options. We surveyed customers to make sure that the silent ones were accounted for. Unilaterally, everyone was very upset. In hindsight, I think we missed the mark in a couple of ways. One, we did not preview the change with any customers. Seems funny now, but we made this initial decision all by ourselves. I think also we really hadn't got to know our customers that well because we thought that if they loved us, they'd upgrade to annual. But no, even if they loved us, they were not going to do that. Huge SMB trait I will never forget. But we recovered in our response because communication and ownership goes a long way in repairing the relationship, and you've got to swallow your pride. So ultimately, we ended up grandfathering our pricing. We effed up blog post, and we even went so far as to make t-shirts with the spiciest customer comments on them, sending them with personal notes as apologies. I don't know if you all speak French, but I knew I kept this t-shirt for a reason. Was this one yours, Guy? We messed up, and we really owned it. I've been holding my jacket tight all day today, so you didn't read that. Actually, our board, one of the comments was, "Tell your board that we're pissed." And we sent that to one of our board members. He loved it. Anyway, after 7+ years growing Zendesk from a 12-person company to a public 2,000-person company, I was ready for a new challenge. And I wanted to think about a new industry, take what I had learned, but be faced with some new problems to solve. I was attracted to Figma due to its market disruption and business model, but I fell in love with it for the customers and the opportunities that a passionate design community brought. I actually just added this today because this person just posted this. Look, March 11th. It's crazy. I pitched myself as someone who could lead all of go-to-market and became the chief customer officer. And I ran marketing, sales, and support. We actually don't have a success team. We have account managers, we have design advocates. Those are probably the two closest things we have to success, but we can talk about that more later. I had strong points of view on how to build out sales when you have a self-service motion. I had also certainly learned a ton about being customer-driven from Zendesk. And I joined the team about 3.5 years ago now, where we were just starting to monetize, and we had about 60 employees. Despite being there early, though, there were signals of greatness. Microsoft and Uber were already customers, so it was clear that the product had enterprise promise. But let me back up and tell you a little bit of the history of Figma to put my stories in context. Figma, for those of you who don't know, it's a design platform for teams that build products together. And it was founded in 2012 by Dylan Field and Evan Wallace. They met at Brown University in the computer science department. They were obsessed with new frontiers in tech, and they wanted to start a company together. And after exploring different options, they kept coming back to design and the importance of it, and how much opportunity there was to improve the design process. So they decided to use the power of a new technology at the time called WebGL and build a design tool in the browser. And that was Figma's big disruption, building in the browser, because no one had done this before for design tools. People were still sending files back and forth. Is this the brand team up here? If you don't use Figma today, you are either putting a file up in the cloud and pointing someone to it, or you're emailing it back and forth, which that doesn't sound like fun to me. At the time Figma launched in 2015, the idea of opening up design work was really controversial. Design was private and siloed. People did it by themselves. They said they'd actually change careers if Figma was the future of design. They were afraid that all of a sudden there'd be so many different opinions to navigate that everything would be designed by committee. These are real user quotes that we got, which are really fun to look at and think about now, 3.5 years later. Today, 2/3 of Figma users are actually non-designers, which shows how much we are democratizing the design process within companies. And before I joined Figma, I was adamant to talk to users. I use users and customers interchangeably. We are kind of like both a B2C company and a B2B. So to me, they mean the same thing in a way. So don't be too thrown off by that. But anyway, I talked to designers who used Figma. I talked to ones who didn't. And it was those customer interviews that really gave me more context and confidence about what I knew about Figma, more so than any other interview I had with them. So the most important thing we can do as leaders during a job is learn about customers, but also before you join the company too. And I think Figma is a special product that we sell to special people, but I'm also really proud of how we holistically think about the customer experience. So I want to highlight a few stories on that. First and foremost, we build the product for the customers. And I know that it's easy to say that for any company, so I want to give you a couple examples. We have a really high transparency culture at Figma, and that plays into our processes. In this case, you see a Slack thread or Slack channel, FigJam sales feedback. We tie Slack fields we tie Slack to Salesforce fields, and then we have our sales team fill in information about certain things we're interested in this case FigJam, which is a product we launched last year. And then we basically democratize that customer feedback with the whole company. 169 people follow this channel. We have 600 people right now, so not the whole company, but a lot of them. We also record sales calls on Chorus, and we make those available for the whole company to listen to. Sales reps actually want people to listen to clips, so they'll send out clips and mention what's being talked about. Our sales team also invites product managers to join certain customer calls. I find that this is not scaling super well as we get bigger, but it still happens. We also have a research team, about 12 people, that are dedicated to working with product, design, and our users to understand how people are using the product and what's resonating. Most of our product launches we do as betas first so that we can understand our users interacting with the product in the way that we think they should. Each year, at different points of the year, our product and engineering teams take time out of the normal roadmap to do what we call quality work. Quality work are things like they're little nitpicks in the product that are hard to get on a roadmap because they're all little things. And we wrap it up as quality work and address them because actually our employees are annoyed about these little things too. And then we do marketing around it because our audience is really excited about anything we add to the product. And so in the end of January this year, we called it 32 Little Big Updates. And what I loved about this campaign was it wasn't just about showing what are the new things we're launching, which you see, well, this is an animated slide normally, but in the first 3 boxes is the actual product reference. But the fourth one, and we did this with all of them, we went and found users who had actually pointed out these things that they didn't like or things that they wanted. And then we used them in the campaign because they were public tweets. It wasn't like we had to go get permission necessarily. And that's what I loved about it, because it's very, very seldom that companies will get feedback, but it's very seldom that they'll follow up with the users on it. And think about it, like, you've given companies feedback before, but when if they come back to you 6 months later and said, hey, I heard what you said, and I built it, and I want to show it to you? Like, no one does that. So it's a huge delighter, and our users feel heard in a way that I think other brands don't make them feel heard. We also have an annual user conference. This is going to be our 3rd year doing it. It's called Config. We call it a conference by the community for the community, so it's a true user conference. Instead of inviting a celebrity keynote like Martha Stewart, who has no affiliation with her product, we ask our community to talk. And last year, we did it online, as you would expect. It was a 2-day event, 4 speaking tracks, and we had 67,000 people register for it, which kind of blew my mind. But actually, what blew my mind even more was we had 400 people apply to speak. So for B2B, like, that seems crazy. But we ended up selecting and coaching 60 speakers from those 400. But then the rest of the applications actually then became content that we used throughout the whole year. So Config is really like a huge moment that fuels the whole year for us in lots of different ways. The thing that I also like about the event is we could have easily recorded a lot of it being virtual, but we chose to do it live as much as possible so that it had an authenticity to it. And I think that's important to our brand. And yay, we're all here in person, so super authentic. As we get ready for this year, we're doing it in May. Every year we do it a little bit differently, and we decided that since our user base is super global, we're going to do it for 24 hours straight. Anne, are you freaking out by that thought? Because we really wanted, like, our whole global audience to feel included, at least in part of it. So we've got speakers from all over the world. We've got content during any time zone you're in. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty excited for it. We also use social channels as a way to learn and engage with our community. 80% of Figma users are outside the US. That is what it was like when I started, too. So super global. And when you've got Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, these kind of platforms allow you to engage with your community without borders, and that's really important to us. So we share product news and updates, but we also amplify what we see with our community, because I think it's important to give recognition to the kinds of people that you want to see more of and make them feel a special connection to your brand. It's not just our social media manager that's engaging online, it's other Figmates too. In this case, Sho is one of our product leaders, and he took to Twitter last month to give people a chance to ask questions about Figma. His prompt was really fairly open-ended. He was inviting people to give questions about product features, design evolution, cost. He wasn't a support center, but you get the idea. And what was so amazing to me is his tone and engagement with people. He literally has like 100 people that responded to him. If you go look him up, Sho. And what is special about his tone is he's not selling. He's not coming in with any agenda. He is simply there to listen, learn, and educate, and create a safe space for people to interact with him. And I think this is an extremely special skill. So if you have people in your company who can do this, who can balance this tone of authenticity and realness, figure out a way for them to share their methods with the rest of your company, because I think it's unique. Figma also had its own pricing moment recently, definitely not as bad as Zendesk one, thank God. No t-shirts were made. We launched a new enterprise plan. My name ended up being on the blog post, so I dusted off my Twitter account, and I'm not a very active Twitterer, and tweeted, and then we had like a dozen people annoyed. They weren't convinced the new plan had the value to justify our higher price. And it was a good reminder to me that, with any kind of pricing launch, someone's always not going to love it. And what's important is how you reach back out to those people. So everyone that made a comment publicly, we reached out to one-on-one, we had a conversation, and actually, when you call out people on the internet, they're always surprised. It's like, oh, I didn't know anyone looked at that. Yeah, of course we looked at that. And so we just have a much more productive conversation about it. My last story is about injecting fun into your customer journey. I think it's not always easy to prioritize fun because it's hard to directly tie ROI to fun. Maybe you don't even think it's part of your brand. But it makes me smile that we do this at Figma because I think it makes a difference. And one example of this is April Fool's Day. We decide to take the approach of not fooling our users, but actually having a fun moment with them. So what we do is we hide an Easter egg, or not really hide, but there's an Easter egg in the product that day. And we don't have to tell anyone about it. Someone finds it pretty fast, and then they tweet about it, and then people get excited. And it's usually something that we don't think they want, but then they like it so much they say, please keep it. And then we don't, because it's just for the day. But they get a kick out of it. Last year, you'll see, so inside Figma, because it's collaborative software, because it's in the browser, you see people's cursors. That's how you know you're in a file with someone else. And so on April Fun Day, we made the cursors into random dogs and pizzas and crayons. And people liked that. Is it okay that we don't have a success team? It's like, no, come, you have stories. But to me, I intentionally didn't want to have a success team at Figma for at least a while because of a couple reasons. One, I thought the product was actually pretty easy to get going on, and I think success teams really show their stuff when you've got something that's harder to implement. So I'm not saying everyone cannot have a success team, but at Zendesk we certainly had one. But I wanted to create the principles of customer success throughout the whole entire go-to-market motion. So that was my MO going into the job. And my 3 takeaways here are actually all really simple because at the end of the day, it is simple what we need to be focused on together. And the first one is obviously, well, not obviously, but it's tied to the theme of the conference here, which is customer success shouldn't be siloed. And people have been talking about this all day long. And the way that I think of it is, a success team might start with retention, and you go and figure out, well, what's going to predict churn, and then you create programs that get ahead of that churn. But that's only just the beginning of success. And when I think about the person who led success when I was at Zendesk, and I was running marketing at the time, I knew her and liked her, and we talked, but we actually really didn't collaborate on that much. And we should have. I don't know why we didn't. Because she had insights that I didn't know about, and vice versa. So if you don't have a relationship with your marketing leader, you should have one. That's one takeaway. But I mean, the other departments too. So I liked the the chart from Anne about all the different departments, like really, like if you really do it right, you can really collaborate on all parts of the journey together. And to Jeffrey Moore's point, like, yeah, it's easier to do in a silo, but you're not going to have the same impact. So I would encourage you to think about which of your peer leaders you're interacting with the most and who not. We all make mistakes. No matter how much you think you've planned something, they happen. And I think what separates good from great leaders is how you respond to them. And I certainly have witnessed the power of acknowledging customers in a way that they don't expect it and what you get back from that, and that's pretty powerful. And then finally, championing the customer. You know, when I'm in internal meetings, there are not customers there normally. So I feel like I need to represent the customer in meetings. What are they going to ask? What would they lobby for? That's what I'm thinking about when I contribute in meetings. And if I can influence some of my colleagues to think this way too, then we start to really have more decisions that are made with the customer in mind. And I think in order to do that, you have to have lots of different ways that customer feedback is flowing into your organization. So if you can only name like 2 or 3 ways that you have customer feedback flowing in, like that's not enough. It has to be in lots of different ways. So research teams, design advocacy, product transparency, social platforms, how you engage. Like, you might not think that this is customer success, but like, I think you can have an impact if you contribute to thinking through how can we better ingest customer feedback into our organization. So 30 minutes, I'm way over time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda.